Ever heard those stories about, levitating monks or mystical objects just floating in midair?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, it turns out science is kind of caught up with fiction. We can actually make things levitate using sound waves.
It's not magic, though. It really does feel like it.
Right.
It's all about physics. And, you provided us with a fascinating article
Yeah.
that explores this whole science behind acoustic levitation and
All the amazing things it can do. Right?
exactly, and all the amazing things it could be used for.
Yeah. Get ready to have your mind blown as we dive into how sound can, literally defy gravity.
Yeah, so our journey starts back in the 1860s
Okay.
with a physicist named August Kunt, who was, he was trying to measure the speed of sound.
Okay.
And he stumbled upon something pretty remarkable
Right.
using basically a big resonant tube.
So he was doing something totally ordinary, and
Right.
boom, a discovery that sparked a whole new field of research.
That's kind of wild. Exactly. What Kunt found was that under the right conditions, sound waves could create these little pockets in the tube
Okay.
where gravity was basically canceled out, and small particles would get trapped in these spots and float defying gravity. This was like the first real glimpse into the world of acoustic levitation.
Okay, I'm picturing, tiny things floating in midair.
Yeah.
So how does it actually work? How do we get to that?
Okay, so think about a bathtub
Okay.
filled with perfectly still water.
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine tapping the surface, rhythmically.
Okay.
You'll see these points where the water stays completely still even though the waves are moving around them.
Okay.
Those are called nodes.
Oh, I can see that. Like little tiny calm spots just surrounded by ripples.
That's a great visualization. And in acoustic levitation, we use special speakers called ultrasonic transducers.
Fancy beaker.
Yeah, fancy speakers to create those kind of nodes, but with sound waves instead of water.
Gotcha.
And these sound waves are too high-pitched for us to hear, but they create pressure.
So these silent sound waves are actually pushing on things.
Yes, and by carefully positioning objects at those nodes, we can use the pressure from the sound waves to hold them in place, counteracting the pull of gravity. It's like creating an invisible force field with sound.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a one-time discovery, right? This field has been developing over time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even early 20th century innovator Nikola Tesla.
Wow, Tesla.
Yeah, he even dabbled in high-frequency sound, paving the way for what we can do with acoustics today.
Right.
Over the years, scientists have figured out how to levitate bigger and more complex objects, so...
There must have been some key players that really pushed the boundaries of this technology. Who comes to mind?
One name that stands out is Shinya Asano, a Japanese researcher who, back in the 1980s, developed some seriously impressive levitation devices.
Wow.
His work really helped to make acoustic levitation more stable and practical.
Cool.
But a major leap happened in 1987,
Right.
thanks to Dr. David Deek and his work with NASA.
Oh, here's where it gets interesting in space exploration. Tell me more.
So Deek, he created a device that could control objects in 3 dimensions.
Wow.
Using just one pair of transducers.
Okay.
He used plexiglass and aluminum to kind of guide the sound waves,
Okay.
and it was remarkably precise.
So they were basically moving things around with invisible sound waves with just a few tweaks. That's crazy.
Exactly. And what's even more significant is that this technology allowed Deek to recreate the conditions of being in space.
What?
Zero gravity right here on Earth.
Whoa. So they could essentially experiment with how things behave in space without actually going to space.
You got it. Deek's research opened up tons of possibilities for NASA and others to study things like how fluids move, right? Or how materials behave in microgravity, all without the cost and hassle of launching things into orbit. Think about how much time and money that could save.
That's pretty amazing. So it's not just about making things float. It's about recreating a whole environment.
Right. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. What Deek's work showed was that acoustic levitation wasn't just a cool trick. It was a powerful tool with a wide range of potential uses.
Okay, I can't wait to hear about those uses. But before we dive into that, I think it's just important to remember that all of this started with sound.
Yeah.
Something that we just take for granted. I mean, we hear sounds every day.
Yeah.
But who would have thought you could actually use them to make things float?
It really does make you appreciate the hidden power of sound, right?
Ah.
And as we'll see, levitation is just the beginning of what we can do with it.
I can't wait. All right, so we've talked about the history and the science behind this. Now let's get to the really exciting part. What can we actually do with acoustic levitation?
Yeah, this is where things get really mind-blowing.
Okay.
Acoustic levitation has applications across tons of different fields, from creating new materials to exploring space to even like revolutionizing medicine.
Whoa, hold on. We can use sound waves to do all that. This is like way more than just floating party tricks.
Exactly. Let's start with material science.
Okay.
One of the big challenges in studying new materials is that even the slightest contamination can, like, mess up your results. But with acoustic levitation, you can suspend materials in midair without them touching anything.
So it's like having this tiny invisible workbench where you can study things in perfect isolation.
That's the idea. It's incredibly valuable for scientists working on things like superconductors, which need to be incredibly pure to work properly.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, what about space? We touched on how Deke's research helped NASA, but what are the possibilities beyond that?
Well, think about the International Space Station.
Okay.
It's basically a giant laboratory in space, but it's incredibly expensive and difficult to get things up there. Acoustic levitation can help us simulate that microgravity environment of space right here on Earth.
So we could basically do experiments in a lab that would normally require, like, a rocket launch. Talk about cutting costs.
And it's not just about cost. We can also use acoustic levitation to study things that are simply impossible to do on Earth, like how fluids behave in zero gravity.
Okay, space and material science.
Yeah.
That's already a pretty impressive resume.
Right.
But you mentioned medicine. How does sauna fit into that picture?
This is one of the areas where acoustic levitation has the potential to be truly transformative, I think.
Okay.
Think about it. We can use sound waves to manipulate things without touching them at all.
Right.
That's incredibly valuable in a field like medicine, where sterility and precision are, like, paramount.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Less invasive surgeries, more targeted drug delivery.
Exactly. Imagine using sound waves to deliver medication directly to a specific cell in the body without affecting any of the surrounding tissue.
Oh.
Or even using sound to manipulate cells for tissue engineering or genetic research.
Wait, genetic research, how does that work?
There have been some pretty incredible experiments where scientists used specific frequencies of sound waves to actually change the genetic expression of cells. For instance, they were able to transform frog embryos into salamander embryos just using sound.
Whoa, that's some next level science.
Yeah.
But let's be real, this all sounds amazing, but is it actually being used in the real world yet? Or is it still mostly in, like, the research phase?
Well, it's a bit of both.
Okay.
While a lot of this is still in the experimental stage, acoustic levitation is already being used in some pretty incredible ways. For instance, in manufacturing, sound waves can be used to assemble delicate electronic components without ever having to touch them.
So no more clumsy human fingers potentially messing things up. I can see how that would be a huge advantage in, industries where precision is everything.
Absolutely. And it's not just electronics. Think about pharmaceuticals. Sound waves could be used to create perfectly spherical drug capsules, which can help with consistent dosage and improve how the drug is absorbed by the body.
Okay, I'm seeing a pattern here. More precision, less contamination, and the ability to, like, manipulate things in ways that we never could before.
Yeah.
It's like sound is becoming this invisible toolkit for all sorts of fields.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And as the technology continues to develop, we can expect to see even more applications emerge. The possibilities are truly limitless.
It's almost hard to wrap my head around all of this. Sound waves, doing surgery, building electronics, even messing with genes. It feels like we're living in the future.
In a way, we are. Acoustic levitation is pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible, and it's only going to get more amazing from here.
Okay, so we've seen how acoustic levitation can be used in, like, medicine, space exploration, material science, and even construction.
Yeah.
But you mentioned something earlier about the possibility of sound explaining ancient mysteries.
Oh, right.
That's pretty intriguing.
It is. There are certain ancient structures and artifacts that have baffled scientists for centuries.
Right.
The precision and scale of some of these things are, like, mind-boggling. And it's led some to speculate whether ancient civilizations might have had knowledge of sound manipulation techniques that we're only just beginning to rediscover.
I'm thinking pyramids, Stonehenge, those massive stone heads on Easter Island, places where it's, like, hard to imagine how people moved and placed those giant stones with the tools they had back then.
You got it. One particularly fascinating example is the El Nasla rock formation in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
It's a massive rock split perfectly in half with a precision that's almost impossible to explain with conventional geological processes.
I've seen pictures of that. It looks like someone sliced it with a laser beam.
Exactly. It's led some to wonder if, Ancient cultures might have used some form of acoustic levitation
Wow.
or sound manipulation to achieve such, like, feats of engineering.
Okay, now I'm really curious.
Yeah.
But is there any actual evidence to support this theory, or is it mostly just speculation at this point?
Well, while there's no definitive proof, the idea that ancient civilizations might have had a deeper understanding of sound and its potential than we previously thought is definitely a tantalizing one.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe as our knowledge of acoustic levitation advances, we'll uncover more clues that could shed light on these ancient mysteries.
That's a fascinating thought. It makes you wonder what other secrets are, like hidden in plain sight, just waiting to be discovered.
That's the beauty of science. There's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to discover. And with a technology as groundbreaking as acoustic levitation, who knows what the future holds?
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, like the history, the science, the applications, and even the potential to rewrite history. But before we wrap things up, I think it's important to talk about the ethical implications of this technology. After all, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Absolutely. As with any powerful technology, there are potential risks and ethical considerations that we need to be aware of.
Right.
And that's what we'll delve into next.
So we've talked about all the amazing things acoustic levitation can do, like revolutionizing medicine and maybe even unlocking secrets from the past.
Yeah.
But now we need to talk about something a little less fun, right? The elephant in the room.
Yeah, the ethical side of all of this.
Exactly. We can't ignore the potential downsides.
Right. Every powerful technology has risks. And we have a responsibility to think about those risks very carefully.
So what are some of those big ethical concerns surrounding acoustic levitation? What comes to mind?
Well, one of the most immediate concerns is that it could be misused.
Right.
As the technology gets more sophisticated and more accessible, it could fall into the wrong hands.
Right.
Imagine someone using acoustic levitation to disrupt critical infrastructure or even cause harm.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's sobering thought. It's like any tool, it could be used for good or for bad.
Exactly.
What about more subtle risks? Are there any concerns about how this technology could impact society in ways we haven't even thought of yet?
Absolutely, for sure. For instance, as acoustic levitation gets more and more precise, it could be used for surveillance in ways we haven't even thought of.
Okay.
Imagine tiny little levitating microphones that could be used to eavesdrop on conversations.
Wow.
Undetected.
Yeah, it's a bit unsettling to think that something invisible could be listening in.
Right.
Yeah. What about the environment? Could there be any unintended consequences for the planet?
That's a valid question. The technology itself isn't inherently polluting.
Right.
But its applications could have indirect effects on the environment.
Right.
If acoustic levitation leads to, increased manufacturing or the creation of new materials, we need to be mindful of what the environmental footprint of those processes will be.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder that we can't just focus on the super exciting possibilities without thinking about the bigger picture.
Right.
We have to think about the long-term consequences of this technology on the planet and on society as a whole.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between pushing the boundaries of innovation and also being responsible stewards of our planet and of each other.
This has been a wild ride.
It has.
We've covered so much, like the history, the science, all the applications, the ethical considerations.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of what acoustic levitation can really do.
It really is a field that's bursting with potential. And as our understanding of sound and its capabilities continues to grow, who knows what incredible breakthroughs are still to come, right?
Well, one thing's for sure, I'll never listen to music the same way again.
Right.
Every time I hear a sound, I'm going to wonder, what hidden powers it might have.
It makes you think.
It really does.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for taking me on this deep dive. It's been truly eye-opening.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this exploration of acoustic levitation.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you found it as fascinating and thought-provoking as we have.
Absolutely.
Remember, the world is full of wonders that are just waiting to be discovered. So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep listening for the secrets that sound has to tell.